Before servicing this snowblower, always remove or disengage the batteries. To replace the battery box, start by removing the 4 T20 Torx screws that secure the PCBA box cover. Then remove the battery box cover, secured with 2 T20 Torx screws, one on each side. Next, remove the 5 T20 Torx screws that secure the inner cover. This will expose the 2 electrical contacts. Continue by removing the 6 T20 Torx screws inside the battery box, 3 on each side. Then remove the 4 5mm hex screws on the outside of the battery box, 2 on each side. Once all of the battery box screws have been removed, release the 2 power terminals as shown here. Then loosen the 4 5mm hex screws that secure the PCBA assembly. This will allow for removal of the battery box, which is secured with locking tabs on each side. Pass the 2 electrical contacts through the holes as you place the new battery box onto the deck. Be mindful of the locking tabs at the base of the battery box, which must go under the lip of the PCBA cover. Continue reattachment of the battery box with the 4 5mm hex screws outside and 6 T20 Torx screws inside. With the 2 contacts in position, close the inner cover and reattach the 5 T20 screws. Then secure the PCBA box cover with the 2 T20 screws. To replace any of the PCBAs, start by removing the battery box as previously shown. With the battery box removed, disconnect the 6 plugs. Next, remove the 4 5mm hex bolts that secure the PCBA assembly. Then loosen the 2 4mm hex screws that secure the adjacent wire cover. The PCBA assembly can now be removed. To access the PCBAs, remove the 4 T20 Torx screws that secure the housing. 2 T20 Torx screws secure the PCBAs. With these screws removed, all 3 PCBAs can be lifted out at once. The PCBA assembly houses the main PCBA, the Battery Management System or BMS PCBA, and the Self-Propel PCBA. To replace the main PCBA, disconnect the yellow connectors shown here. Then carefully remove the silicone from the ribbon connector and disconnect it. When replacing either of the other PCBAs, the silicone from the ribbon connector on the BMS PCBA must be carefully removed. This will disconnect it from the main PCBA and the Self-Propel PCBA. When reattaching either of the ribbon connectors, be sure to use silicone to waterproof the connection. When reassembling the PCBAs, it's easier to start with the Self-Propel PCBA, then the BMS PCBA, and finish with the main PCBA. Tuck the wires into the corresponding channels as you go. Once the main PCBA is in place, secure it to the housing with the 2 T20 Torx screws. Proceed by mounting the PCBA assembly onto the snowblower using the 4 T20 Torx screws. Then connect the 6 wires as shown here. Before closing the top cover, make sure the wires are properly aligned in the corresponding channels. Loosely reattach the hex bolts that secure the PCBA assembly. Complete the repair by replacing the battery box, as previously shown. Please refer to the EGO service diagram and parts list for specific parts needed for this repair. Always use genuine EGO parts.